Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Produce Buzzers podcast. We are so happy you have joined us today, and I think you will be too after the show is over, because you will learn a lot about fresh fruits and vegetables, how to select and store them, how to prepare and cook them, and surprising facts about their history and origin. We hope it inspires you to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables, not only for your health, but also for your delight and pleasure as you explore their amazing world of taste and delicious flavors. Eating more of them will transform your life in so many positive ways. So settle back, relax, and get ready for another delicious adventure with the Produce Buzzers. Greetings and welcome to another delicious episode of the Produce Buzzers podcast. I'm Edwin Stepp, your host and executive editor of ProduceBuzz.com. I'm joined once again by Teresa Nolan, the founder and president of Produce Buzz, along with Rick Stepp and Cynthia Benedetto, contributing editors to Produce Buzz. Well, January. It's January already, 2025. Hard to believe. But January is more than just a fresh start to the year. It's also National Slow Cooking Month. There's so many of these special months and days now. It's funny. But as the winter chill sets in, there's nothing more comforting than a steaming, hearty stew packed full of veggies, slowly blended together over hours of slow cooking. These meals can warm you up and satisfy you like no others. And they're quick and easy. It's an easy way to get your 5 to 10 a day with a minimal amount of prep and no slaving over a hot stove or oven. So today we are going to launch our celebration of National Slow Cooking Month by suggesting some easy and delicious recipes that our produce buzzers love to make. So stay tuned and be inspired to get out that crock pot or Dutch oven and fill it with healthy, delicious veggies. But first, let's take a look at how important slow cooking has been.
Whoa. Did you say fast and easy?
Yeah.
I would disagree.
Okay. All
but
right.
we'll get to that later.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like to
Hence, slow cooker.
Yeah. Well, I'm ready to hear your argument about that. So that's actually one of the things we should discuss today. So what is it? Is it fast and easy? Okay. Anyway, first, let's take a look at how important slow cooking has been in the history of humans. Slow cooking has a fascinating history that dates back thousands of years, evolving from ancient cooking techniques to the modern electric slow cooker we know today. Its story reflects humanity's ingenuity in preserving flavors, maximizing nutrition, and making the most of available resources and time. Slow cooking, in its simplest form, has been part of human culinary traditions for millennia. Early examples include clay pots and hearth cooking. Ancient civilizations, including those in Mesopotamia, China, and Egypt, used clay pots to slow cook stews and grains over open fires or buried in embers. The sealed clay pots allowed ingredients to cook slowly, retaining moisture, flavor, and nutrition. Some cultures cooked underground. Techniques like the Hawaiian imu, an underground oven, and Middle Eastern tanur utilized earth and heat to slow cook meats and vegetables over hours, creating tender, flavorful dishes. Then the traditional European soups and stews. In medieval Europe, hearth cooking evolved, simmering stews and broths over low flames for hours, making the most of cuts of meat and root vegetables. As societies developed, so did the cooking methods. The shift from open fire cooking to stove-based cooking in the 18th and 19th centuries allowed for more controlled slow cooking techniques. Cast iron Dutch ovens appeared at this time. These heavy pots became popular in the 17th and 18th century for their ability to retain heat and cook food slowly over a fire or in an oven. The Jewish people had a traditional dish called a kolent, a slow-cooked stew of meat, beans, and barley. They developed that to adhere to Sabbath cooking restrictions because the ingredients were prepared before the Sabbath began and left to cook slowly overnight. This tradition led directly to the invention of our modern-day crock pot. The invention of the crock pot actually started with a man named Irving Naxon. He developed what he called the Naxon beanery cooker, and he's credited with creating the precursor to the modern slow cooker in the 1930s. He was inspired by his Jewish grandmother's kolent, that traditional Jewish dish. So he designed a device to replicate the long, slow cooking process. This invention became known as the Naxon Beanery Cooker. He launched the Naxon Utilities Corporation of Chicago, and then he was inspired by a story from his mother, which told how back in her native Lithuanian town, his grandmother made a traditional kolent from beans, which took several hours to cook in an oven. But then a company called the Rival Company from Sedalia, Missouri, bought Naxon's company in 1970 and acquired his patent for the bean simmer cooker. Rival Company asked inventor Alex McMaster from Boonville, Missouri, to develop Naxon's bean cooker into a large-scale production model which could cook an entire family meal, going further than just cooking a bean meal. The cooker was then reintroduced under the name Crock Pot in 1971. In 1974, Rival introduced removable stoneware inserts, making the appliance easier to clean. Marketed as a time-saving device for busy families, the crock pot became a household staple, particularly in the United States during the 1970s. So, slow cooking is celebrated not just for its convenience, but it's for cultural and culinary importance. It connects us to traditional cooking methods, helps reduce food waste by utilizing tougher cuts of meat and vegetable, and brings out rich, deep flavors that only time and patience can achieve. Slow cooking vegetables can retain more disease-fighting nutrients than stovetop cooking. The low heat and moisture help prevent the loss of water-soluble vitamins like vitamin C and B vitamins. And slow cooking does not destroy more nutrients. In fact, it may help preserve nutrients that can be lost when food is cooked rapidly at high heat. And slow cooked vegetables just often taste better. So, whether it's a pot of cassoulet in France or cozido in Portugal, or a modern slow cooker stew in an American kitchen, the essence of slow cooking remains the same, bringing warmth, nourishment, and togetherness to the table. So, we celebrate National Slow Cooking Month. Okay, Cynthia. Now, you seem to think that using the crock pot, slow cooking, is not as easy.
Negative. I did not say that.
Okay.
You said it was fast and easy. Easy without a doubt.
Okay.
Fast, negative.
Okay.
I was just like going to correct you on that because you, like my mother, God rest her soul, uh, are a wordsmith. And I'm a little surprised that you would make a grammatical error like that.
That's not a grammatical error. It might be incorrect that it's easy. Yeah, you
I have
still
two
got to.
questions for Cynthia, though. If I could ask her two questions. Do you use slow cook? Do you use slow cookers?
Absolutely.
Okay. So the second question is the reason it's not fast for you, do you like stand over the slow cooker and watch it for the entire 6 hours or
You
do you
know,
do
you
something
taught
else?
it like, isn't
Okay.
the watch pot doesn't? No, I do
Okay,
not. But if I'm
I'm
hungry right now,
yeah.
I'm gonna go like I made a grilled cheese.
Okay, it finally sunk in what your criticism of me is about. It is absolutely not fast. We're calling it slow cooking. Okay, I get it.
I said that, huh? Slow
Yeah,
cooking.
I was just thinking about the prep work, you know.
Yeah, the
Here, look
prep
at
work is
me. Look
fast.
at me.
Think about it.
Slow cooking. No, no, I
Okay.
think that even like the prep is what it is. If you're gonna cook, it is what it is.
Yeah, you got to chop
However,
up stuff.
the only issue I have with a crock pot is the fact that you have to sear
The
the
meat.
veggies and yes, that.
Yeah.
And so you make it one pot and then plop it in.
You don't have to sear the
and every
veggies, do you? The meat, I can understand that.
well, I happen to, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
because you want to put the onions in there while it's, you're getting that, uh,
So you're sautéing stuff, veggies, before you put them in the crock pot?
you sear it. So I don't think, I guess, is Teresa, is searing the same as sautéing? No, a sautéing
No.
is different.
When you sear, you're kind of getting a coating on the outside. With the sauteing, you're softening it and
Yeah, that's true.
bringing out the sugars and the onions and everything.
But I don't
Mhm.
understand why you sear vegetables. I've never heard of that before.
You
The
put,
meat, yes, to
for
lock in the
me,
juices.
so I season the meat, put it in to sear, but I also will put the onions in.
To sear along with the meat.
Yes,
Don't some of these slow cookers have a high setting so that you can
yeah, but the high cooking, I would argue, is that the
not enough?
same as a cast iron Dutch oven, which
Probably not.
is the best. However, that is something that I would, Rick, have to watch.
Hmm.
Do you have to watch a Dutch oven if you have the setting in if it's in the oven and it's low enough temperature, you don't have to sit there and
Oh,
watch it.
I cook my Dutch oven on top.
Oh, okay.
If I'm going to make it a pot roast traditionally
Yeah.
without like mine had broken, my crock pot had broken, so I'm not going to do without pot roast as a result of it, but it and and a Dutch oven on top of the stove, I think takes less time than a slow cooker.
Yeah, that's true. So that was one of the questions I had. I was going to ask each of you if you use a Dutch oven, have a Dutch oven, and if you do you prefer that over a crock pot? So
But you
what do you?
can't beat the ease and convenience, I think is the word you were looking for, not
Right,
fast. You were
right.
looking for convenience.
You're absolutely right.
But it's the prep work that is standard. Searing it, throwing it in the crock pot, setting the temperature or time.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
some
I would.
crock pots have up to 10 hours, maybe some to
Yeah.
12, I think. The one I have it only has goes to 8, but anyway, Teresa, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I have a crock pot, but I must always do things either on top of the stove and for something slow cooking like that. Sometimes I'll use the oven to start the process. It just depends on the item, but I've pretty much gotten away from using the actual crock pot. So yes, I would
Do you
use
have
the
a
Dutch
Dutch
oven.
oven?
I make a Dutch oven out of the pans that I have. And
Oh,
I do have cast iron pans too.
yeah,
So I can
right.
use that, but
And you can
yeah,
cover them. It's got a
yeah,
cast iron cover as
yeah,
well. Yeah.
yeah.
Good.
And I actually learned that trick from Colette when we lived together. And
Hmm.
do you remember the beef stew that they used to make at
Oh, yeah.
Tasty Treat?
Just just
Yeah,
fall apart in your mouth. So,
yeah, right. That's when I learned to use the pots that way. And you didn't even have to add water to make it.
right,
So,
right. Rick, do you have a Dutch oven?
Yes, we use it occasionally. We don't use our crock pot as much as we used to, but the Dutch
Why
oven,
not?
just because of the things we eat, it's not like we have a lot of venison right now, and so we'll use the crock pot or Dutch oven to cook the venison because it's like your beef stew you're talking about, the tasty treat. If you cook it slow,
hmm
it's really tender afterwards.
hmm
Yeah.
But
I think the thing about the crock pot, we used it a lot. My wife and I were both working. Our children were going to school. You could start it, you could put it in the morning, put it on 8 hours, leave the house, not worry about it burning the house down.
hmm
And you get
Right.
back and dinner's ready. So,
hmm
yeah,
I find that you have, for mine, I have to monitor because I want it to simmer. I don't want to reach a
Boil.
boil.
Right.
Yeah, so that's why I'm always like, sometimes the
It
top will be
seems,
on, sometimes the top will crack. I'll crack it a little bit, let some steam
yeah,
out. So that's why I'm like finicky about that. Also, I like if I am cooking it on top, and even with a crock pot, I turn the meat because if anything is exposed,
yeah,
I'm concerned about it being dried out. But even when you're saying like, oh, like it cooks 20 hours, well, that would, I would think, dry out the meat
yeah,
even if it's submerged.
yeah. And generally meat floats, so
Mm.
it's hard to get it completely submerged.
I don't know why, but I was never as happy with my crock pot meats as I was with the ones I did on the stove or in
Mm.
the oven. It just,
I'll have to bring you my crock. No, my
A Dutch oven.
slow cooker.
yeah.
We're since our emphasis is fruits and vegetables, I can only think of a few vegetables that I would cook in a crock pot.
Right.
Go
That's why we
ahead.
don't use them that
What
much.
is it?
Well,
Root vegetables.
yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't put, green beans in a crock pot for 8 hours. I'd rather just steam them.
Well,
Mhm.
that's me hovering the crock pot because I put them in stages.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. I've got my recipe today has a lot of different vegetables in it. But to really make it right, I've made this recipe before. It's been a while, but uh, to really do it right, you can't put them all in at the same time because they all, some of them are just too tender. They'll boil down to mush. So,
Mhm.
Right.
And I was thinking like green peas. Can you imagine how soggy they would be if you cooked green peas? You'd have
I
I
peas.
don't even I
Go
don't
ahead.
even put my carrots in at the same time that I put my celery.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, sometimes speed and convenience, not speed, but convenience,
Thank you.
you have you may have to sacrifice some of those veggies, get them mushy, but it's still right. But it's better. Like when you hear my recipe today, you'll be surprised at some of the things that goes into this. It's kind of an Italian style
Mm.
stew. Okay, so produce buzzers, you use Dutch oven, you use regular pots and pans or cast iron, you use a crock pot. That's all great ways to slow cook. So now let's talk about your recipes, your favorite recipes. How about you, Cynthia? Have you got a
Well,
good crock pot recipe to share?
the oldie but goldie would be a pot roast.
Great. That's it.
Um,
Okay, thank you, Cynthia. Let's move on.
but I also do a chili sometimes.
Ooh, yeah.
But I use chuck and a shoulder with lots of marbling and get heavy-handed with the salt, pepper, and garlic salt.
Mhm.
Sear it on every side, not just both sides. Then I turn it perpendicular. Then I throw in the onions, let those cook down as I'm searing it. Then that goes in the slow cooker. It's the mirepoix with the onions, celery, and carrots. With the celery, I might put it in after the meat goes in the slow cooker just to get that, what's that called? Like the fawn from the slow cooker.
I don't know.
Or,
We're
yeah.
vegetable experts here, listeners, not chefs. So I'm
Like,
sorry we don't have the
right.
correct terminology.
And
But
it's not,
mirepoix, I was impressed with that. That's a real
thank
chef
you.
word.
Thank you. And I know mise en place.
Mise en
That's the
place,
only
that's
French
a
I know. But then throw it in there, soften the celery a little bit. Then it goes in the slow cooker. Then I do have some broth that I'll put in there. So it'll either be a vegetable broth that I've made in the past or a beef stock. Put that in there, turn it on, and then in a couple hours I will put the carrots in. Hour after that, the green beans. I like French beans. and potatoes.
So you put the
So
potatoes in pretty late. I always
yeah,
thought
because
potatoes.
they'll be like mush if not
Hmm. My experience is that they take longer.
longer than what?
Well, not longer than carrots or celery, but I don't know. I'm sure that
Okay, so
if
for you, you
what's
could
your
just
full length of cooking? 8 hours?
no, I do medium, mm,
I
at
mean,
least four, maybe five or six.
yeah, okay. So here's what I'm hearing. The meat and the onions go in first, then the celery. Then 2 hours later, the carrots. Then an hour later, potatoes. And then the green beans at the same time as the potatoes.
Okay, I will edit that down. Instead of 2 hours, it'll be 1 hour, then the carrots, then hour, then the green beans, French beans, and then the potatoes.
So the potatoes go in after the green beans. That surprises me, but you know what you're
How
doing.
small are the potatoes cut?
Small-ish.
Yeah.
Like even if I use those like baby Dutch potatoes, if I don't just open the bag and dump them in.
Right.
Cut them in half.
I try to make them uniform in size.
Right. Good.
So you have green beans in your pot roast.
Yes.
So it's not like a beef stew. It's more, it's a, you get-
But curiously, you can use that similar setup. I would throw a can of diced tomatoes in and then add every vegetable, broccoli, if you want cauliflower, like any kind of vegetable that you want for your vegetable beef.
mm.
But I would also use the chuck because I think that when that slow cooks down, you can eat it with a fork, cut it with a fork.
Are you leaving the meat whole or are you cutting it into cubes?
If I'm doing the beef stew, I
Mhm.
would have it cut in cubes. If I'm
Mhm.
doing the pot roast, I do leave that whole. Just then when I'm flipping it over, it's one piece.
Mhm. Okay.
Sounds delicious. Yeah, and you can mix it up, do different vegetables different times, depending on what you have, what's on sale
Hmm.
at the grocery store. So that sounds great.
So with this recipe, what you end up with is a beef stew, a vegetable beef stew. I'm assuming you put enough vegetables in there that it's kind of like a vegetable beef stew.
Well, I think for my family, putting in, I wouldn't put broccoli into a pot roast. So I think that profile changes a little bit. And then sometimes I might throw in some crushed red pepper. But a pot roast for us is pretty standard.
Yeah, I think that was her original point, which is this is a pot roast, so it's a big piece of meat.
But you could
It's not.
veer off and make it
Yeah,
into a soup.
yeah,
And the beautiful thing about that is it's always, no matter what you're making, it grows. So it can feed a lot of people.
it is amazing how it does seem to. There's a synergy that's created when you put all these vegetables together. It's more than the sum of its parts. So,
Mhm.
It's that, yeah, but it's like, and it's that comfort food. And I think that it's different than if you want to do, if you threw chicken in there because chicken breast will get dried out. I think that's the only issue with a slow cooker is that you have to watch the meat.
yeah, good advice. Now, how do you serve that pot roast when it's time to put it on the plate or put it in front of your family? What do you do?
I plate it up at the slow cooker.
Yeah, and put the meat right in the
It's in
center.
it's in
What
a
the
bowl, or
veggies?
if
Oh,
it's in like a
oh,
shallow bowl, and then we have like a big crusty bread to go with it.
oh yeah, you gotta have the crusty bread. Okay, well, thank you, Cynthia. Who wants to go next? Who's got a great slow cooker recipe and they're just dying to tell us about it?
my recipe is, I just don't really use the crock pot that much. But what I do, uh, I make a lot of soups, as I've told you before.
Oh, by the way,
And
it's also National Soup Month.
oh, yay. I knew
So
I'd
they're
find a way to
very
fit in.
similar. The only reason I didn't go with National Soup Month for this is because you talked about soup last
I know.
episode. So I thought, well,
But if you want to lose weight,
yeah,
make your soup, eat your soup first. Then if you're still hungry, you can eat a little something of something, a little something else.
right.
But the soup usually will help to fill you up. It's really a good way to start off the new year if you're trying to lose a little weight. So sometimes I roast my vegetables before I put them in to cook to make the vegetable broth. So
That's
that would be,
interesting.
Yes. Hmm.
yeah, onions, garlic, and carrots, and I would roast them first. And then I would throw them into the slow cooker or the sometimes the pressure cooker. That's faster, but it works. And sometimes on the stove to slow cook. And I would throw in the celery, maybe parsley or cilantro, and spices such as pepper, basil, thyme, bay leaf, salt, a little salt if you want the salt. I try to stay away from it and cook it slowly. But I would when I roast the vegetables first, I would go about 35 minutes, and I think you can do it at 350, although some recipes call for 400. I think it just depends on how you want them roasted. I don't like mine to be burnt. I just want them cooked well with just,
Mhm.
and I think that if you go to 400 degrees and cook them for 40 minutes, you're going to have some almost burnt vegetables. So I
Yeah.
would do 350 for 35, something like that. Throw them in with the other ingredients that I mentioned, the celery, parsley or cilantro, the spices that you want, and cook them slowly over maybe about a 4 hour period. Um, then I would, of course, you're going to be adding water to that. So you've got to have probably about 12 cups of water in with them. And after they have reached the state of deliciousness in the you remove the ingredients and then strain it to get just the broth. And from there, you can go on to the various soups. And I think I mentioned before that I don't like my vegetables and my soup to be overcooked. So a lot of times I will cook them separately and just add them to the broth.
Oh,
Um, so again, we're going to be putting in the celery, the carrots into this broth with onions and garlic and everything that you like in your vegetable soup. But you know, don't you don't want to overcook them. So I will take the cooked vegetables and add them to the broth and then serve that way. It just there's so much more flavor in it. And of course, you can throw in your beans or your whole wheat pasta and or both. It makes a great vegetable soup. It's really good for you and pretty simple to do. But when you're cutting up all these vegetables, there's a lot of work to that too.
yeah. Yeah.
And the way I'm doing it, I'm not taking advantage of the crock pot situation. So, you know, it's more work than just being able to throw them in the crock pot.
Right.
But
You meant,
hey,
oh, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, you go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
You finish off, and then I got a question.
Good food comes at a price,
That's true. That's true.
Absolutely.
You mentioned a pressure cooker. Now,
Yes.
I think you're talking about something different than what we used when we were years ago to can vegetables from the garden and store, right? Or is it the same thing?
Well, a pressure cooker, I think that pressure cookers were used for that too.
Yeah.
But if you throw all these ingredients into the pressure cooker, you can get your vegetable broth a lot faster because it's going to cook down a lot
Yeah.
faster.
But
You can also make it in the microwave.
That's good. Yeah, we'll do fast cooking in another episode, Rick, and you can lead us on that.
Okay.
Teresa, thank you so much. Do you have anything else to add to your luscious, lovely, delicious sounding recipe?
No, not at this time.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. And it is National Soup Month, and you can slow cook a soup. In fact, you could cook a soup in the slow cooker or crock pot too, I suppose. Okay, well, how about it, Rick? What kind of delicious recipe do you have for us?
Well, today I'd like to talk about potato soup.
Oh,
It's
good.
basically a potato-based soup rather than a tomato-based.
Yeah.
And you can basically do anything you want with the potato soup. You can add whatever you want to it. But do you and Teresa remember when our dad used to make potato soup?
Yep.
I cannot remember what he put in it, but it was really good. And it wasn't a thick potato soup. It seemed like it was a little bit creamy, maybe.
The potatoes probably made it creamy. He may have put some milk in it too.
Yeah, that could be.
I don't really remember. There's a vague thought that comes back to mind, but boy, I don't
One of
remember
the few
it very
things he ever made that I remember is potato soup.
Yeah.
And of course, it's very soothing on a winter day. And the potato soup that we made last night is a variation of what we normally would do. But the recipe we made last night has 3 cups of chicken or vegetable stock, 2 pounds of Yukon Gold potatoes, the golden colored potatoes. It doesn't have to be that exact brand name. And most people would peel those potatoes.
Variety, not brand.
Yeah. Well,
I'm like breaking everybody's balls today,
it
right?
actually is a brand name.
Yukon Gold
Yeah,
is
that's actually a brand name. But there are other yellow potatoes like that you could also use. You can use regular potatoes, but there's something about those Yukon Golds that it's almost like they've already got butter in them.
Mhm.
I think it may be a psychological thing, but
Right.
that's what I recommend. And use a pound. In this one we did a variation. We're putting rutabagas into the potato soup. The reason we like those is the rutabagas are very solid and firm, and they don't cook down the same way that potatoes do.
Right.
And they add a little bit of a bitter flavor. I don't know how often you guys use rutabagas in your cooking, but you just peel the rutabaga and cut it into small cubes. And when you're done with the soup, you'll actually taste those rutabaga cubes separately from what the potato tastes like. So it's a really good addition for a root vegetable.
They soften up nicely.
No, they don't soften that much.
Oh, well, they're not crisp.
No, they're not crisp, but they're more firm.
Yeah.
You can tell the difference in consistency
Right.
when you slow cook it like this.
Yeah.
So we used a pound of rutabagas, which is quite a bit. You don't have to use that many. You could use
What was your quantity on the potatoes?
a full crock pot when we're done. Oh, the potatoes.
How many?
2 pounds of potatoes.
So 2-to-1 on the
2-to-1 is
potatoes
what we
versus
use.
rutabaga. Okay.
And some people may not like the flavor of the rutabagas that much, so you don't have to put them in there. You can put fewer in there if you'd like. You can also substitute turnips for rutabagas if you don't have access to them, or if you like the taste of turnips.
They're pretty similar.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
And then 2 large carrots cut in small cubes, 1 large white or yellow onion. We just use the yellow onion. And of course, you peel it and dice those. 4 tablespoons of butter or bacon grease, whichever you prefer. Or no, you don't have to put any fat in it at all if you don't want to. You can leave all of that out. We use the bacon grease because it gives it a really good.
Yummy.
Yeah.
What do you do with the bacon?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. You can. We didn't do that.
BLTs tomorrow.
We store our bacon grease. If we ever cook bacon, we store it in the freezer.
Oh, okay. So you have it
Later.
as a
But
staple in your pantry.
you can cook the bacon to add to it as a topping after the soup's done
Yeah, that sounds good.
and use the grease in the soup. Last night we didn't use bacon. We just used a little bit of the grease. And then if you want to make it creamier and thicker, add 1/3 cup of all-purpose flour. Uh, we used the flour last night just to see if we like it better than just potato soup without flour. And it was very, very tasty and it was really thick. But the next time I make potato soup, I won't put flour in it because I prefer it kind of more like a liquid type soup than a thick soup.
Yeah.
A chowder type thing.
Yeah. 1 12-ounce can of 2% evaporated milk, 1 cup of shredded sharp cheddar cheese, 1/2 cup of plain yogurt or sour cream. We use the sour cream rather than the yogurt. Here again, you don't have to use that at all. You don't want it to be creamy, just leave it out. 1 teaspoon of kosher salt, 1/2 teaspoon freshly cracked black pepper. And then for toppings, after the soup's done, you can use anything you like in a soup. You can use thinly sliced green onions or chives, extra cooked vegetables that you already steamed, like peas or any kind of vegetable that you would like. I would suggest cooking those separate from the soup and then adding those to it after it's done.
Why wouldn't you just throw them into the soup?
I like the taste of a fresh vegetable that's not overcooked.
Mm.
You know, cooking the potatoes for a long time is good because it makes kind of a creamy base.
Hmm.
But that's just my preference. I mean, you can put vegetables in it from the beginning if you want. I mean, the carrots are obviously going to cook down after 6 hours of cooking, but
Yeah,
some
but
people prefer to put fresh carrots, shredded carrots in afterwards, you know. Other toppings you could use uh, is the cooked bacon we talked about, extra sour cream, shredded cheese. Can even take, like if you were going to make chili and cook hamburger separately and add the cooked hamburger to the potato soup to give it the flavor. And if you want to make it into a main dish, you can put a lot of fresh cooked hamburger into it. If you're going to have a meat, if you don't want to serve a meat separate from the soup, you can just put meat in it after it's cooked.
Sounds like it might taste almost like a shepherd's pie.
Yeah. The one we made last night actually did kind of taste that way. One with
It
the
was
flour in
thicker
it.
because it was thicker
Yeah.
and had the
Right.
peas. Did you put peas in it last night?
No,
Oh, okay. Because
we
the
didn't have any on
shepherd's
hand.
shepherd's pie has peas and carrots and mashed potatoes
Yeah.
with the ground beef.
But the good thing about a root vegetable base for a soup is that you can use so many different things.
Yeah.
Mix it up. You don't have to follow this recipe.
yeah, the hardware vegetables are a great choice. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
I used to make some beef stew with every root vegetable I could think of. Parsnips, turnips, rutabagas, celeriac, uh,
Sell your ass?
celeriac. You know what celeriac is. I did put celery and I did put the mirepoix in with it,
Thank you.
but it was just chock full of all these different kinds of root vegetables. And that was really good. You really had to cook that a while for it to come down, to get down.
Wow.
But it would always turn out good.
Did you
But
put
those
any cabbage, any type of cabbage?
sometimes I did put cabbage in it occasionally, but not all the time. It does go well with cabbage, beef
Yeah.
stew, cabbage, and what was the other thing I was thinking? Oh, potatoes. Usually I put potato. I don't think I mentioned potatoes, but potatoes, rutabagas, parsnips, turnips. the sell your ass, sell your rack. And that was a winner for me. I don't think
How
my,
about kohlrabi? Would that be good in there?
yeah, it probably would. I don't
Probably
remember if I
wouldn't be
used it.
bad, yeah.
Yeah,
But
it's,
kohlrabi does have a flavor. That coleslaw that I made was unbelievable.
yeah. I think I may have used kohlrabi once or twice. I think I remember thinking, I want to see how many root vegetables, different root vegetables I can put into this stew.
Hmm. How about
And
beets? Did you throw any of those in there?
I don't think so
I
because
don't think beets would be good.
yeah, it changed the color and everything too much. But
Forget the color, like it's got a strong flavor. And
yeah,
I
that's true.
love beets.
Right. I have
But
made borscht before. Have any of you made borscht?
No.
No.
That's beets and cabbage primarily. Beets, cabbage, carrots.
Hmm.
Uh,
I'm surprised, pleasantly surprised, that Rick would add such tasty dairy yummies, the sour cream or the condensed cream. Um, when I do a potato leek soup,
Yeah.
I use chicken stock. That's it. Because
Yeah.
like it seems like it's too viscous,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah. This is actually the first time we looked online and looked at different recipes, different variations, and we decided to try this particular one last night. It's not my favorite potato soup, but I think a lot of people would really like this because of the flour and the creaminess of it. Uh, but I prefer one that's you don't have to put any of that stuff in it. Potatoes and rutabagas.
it didn't match up to our dad's potato soup, is what you're saying.
Correct. It was very good. It was very filling. I think the flour really made it filling, and
The dairy would too.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, forget the flour. Don't be blaming a couple tablespoons of flour on there. It was
Bacon
the
grease,
sour cream.
hamburger.
And didn't he add some cheese? Didn't he add like whatever? And look, I love fat and sugar. But I'm just saying,
well,
like
there was sugar
that
in that
ain't
sweetened condensed milk, so that would have helped you out.
All right, very good. That sounds great. So my recipe then, if you've finished, Rick,
Yeah.
is a very hearty Italian-inspired stew, or could be a soup, depending on how you fix it. Like Rick said, you can make it thicker or thinner. But it's again one of these things that I've made in the past. So how many different vegetables can I put in this thing? Now, Cynthia's going to hate it. She's already
uh,
mentioned she doesn't like all these things pushed together. But I use zucchini, carrots, celery, onion, a whole onion, garlic cloves, uh, then green beans. Rick, you said you didn't like green beans, but they do well in this. They hold their shape and everything. Eggplant, artichoke hearts, Kalamata olives.
the artichoke hearts, are they marinated or are
Yeah,
they raw?
I usually get the marinated ones, and I drain them off nicely. They still have, I don't want the liquid in it,
Mm.
but they've been marinated, so they have that flavor. Usually put cannellini beans in with it too. That gives it the protein. So, but I don't want to overdo the beans. I usually just sprinkle them in. So, and you can either use chicken broth or vegetable broth to keep it a veggie centric. And if you're vegetarian, uh, you would want to go with the vegetable broth, and it can be just as flavorful. Oh, one thing I forgot though is the Italian seasonings. That's basically basil, oregano, thyme, parsley. Some people like rosemary. I love rosemary, but sometimes rosemary dominates too much in those Italians. So I prefer the oregano to dominate.
Agreed. Hmm.
And then salt and pepper. So that's very important to give it that Italian flavor, are those spices. And if you can get fresh, that's great, but you don't need fresh. Dried basil, oregano, thyme, and parsley work really well. When I make it, I just put everything in and let it, except for I have mentioned earlier that spinach or kale at the end. You don't want to put spinach or kale in at the beginning because it will really be gone by the time you're done. But put it all in there and just put it on 6 to 8 hours on low or 3 to 4 on high. And then about the last 30 minutes, you can throw in the kale or spinach, whichever you prefer. And if you want to make it kind of like a minestrone, maybe you might want to cook a little bit of pasta on the side, and you can add that in about 30 minutes to go. But I think it's got so much texture already. I don't usually put the pasta in with it. And that's pretty much it. Dish it out and grind and grate some Parmigiano Reggiano and a little fresh basil on top. And it really comes out nicely. So,
Delicious.
So
that's,
when that's done, what is the base of the soup like? Is it
well, it's broth because it's
It's
vegetable broth, and that might, how much broth. I think I usually buy one of those 48 ounce, that's 4 cups, right? Is that 4 cups? No, that's 6 cups.
right?
6 times 8 is 48. 48 ounces of the broth, and that should suffice. But if you've got all those ingredients in there and it's not covered in broth, then you may need to add more. So you want to make sure those veggies are covered or swimming in the broth.
Tell me this: if you wanted that in a tomato base, what would happen if you put tomato juice?
You could, in fact, that is one way I have made it. I get one of those large can of diced tomatoes, or you could do fresh tomatoes if you're inclined. Fresh tomatoes actually would work well because they would cook, and it might be more flavorful, but it's so much easier just to pop that can open and throw it in. But yeah, that does add a lot. It does change the flavor of it, but it does make it a different kind of soup, but it's good. Okay, do we have a homegrown today?
We have a homegrown.
All right. So, listeners, it's time for your favorite segment on the Produce Buzzers podcast. Yes, it's time for Homegrown. No, don't run away. Don't turn the volume off. You have to stay and listen and be punished. Teresa, what is our homegrown?
Okay. So what did the produce reporter fear most when he was sued by the parsley farmer for writing a scathing article on him?
Okay, so let me make sure I get this right. The produce reporter? No, wait.
The
Was
produce reporter
sued by the parsley
farmer.
farmer for writing a scathing report about the parsley farmer.
Correct.
Okay, let's think this through. Any guesses? I don't know.
He feared that it
what
would
did
leave
he-
a
what
bad
did he-
taste in his mouth.
No, wait, what was the ultimate question? What did he get?
What did
or
he fear the most?
What did he fear
Yeah.
when he got sued?
Mm-hmm.
Parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme.
Mm.
Oh, that's good.
No, that's not good. That has no meaning at all. Doing time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would scare
That's
him.
better.
That would go.
I've got one right on the tip of my tongue.
Okay.
That his wages will be garnished.
Yep.
Ah,
Yeah, you got it.
very good.
Is
Oh, we're
that
supposed
your
to grind.
first one?
No, he's got him before.
No, he's got him before. He's got a good pun mind.
I didn't laugh because that was a funny pun. I laughed because Rick got it. So just so everybody
Wow.
understands out there, we didn't groan. None of us groaned. We all laughed.
Yeah, we were
Boy,
all
all
like,
here is that.
we were all aghast. So we were like,
Well, thank you, Teresa, for that. And thank you, Produce Buzzers, for your delicious recipes. It's National Slow Cooker Month and National Soup Month. So get your pots and pans out, make something delicious with lots of veggies in it. So you will
and
eat
it's
healthier.
very convenient.
It's convenient, not fast.
Not fast.
It's very slow.
Slow, slow, slow. Slow food. All right. Thank you. Well, thank you, listeners, for tuning in to the Produce Buzzers podcast, brought to you by Produce Buzz, the gathering place for lovers of fresh fruits and veggies. We hope you were entertained a bit and educated a lot about fresh produce. Be sure to join us next time, and please tell your friends to do so as well. Like, share, and comment on our Produce Buzz Facebook page, and check out our website at www.producebuzz.com. There you will find articles about fresh fruits and veggies, how to select, store, and prepare them, as well as lots of interesting facts about all the wonderful bounty the earth provides for us. Until next time, be fruitful and don't forget to veg out.